what I've learned about myself, the 11th of June, 2026. We create our own reality. We can manifest the life that we want, but we can also manifest our own misery. For far too long, I've done the latter. My internal dialogue had always been extremely negative, not only lacking hope for the future, but also in the way that I would talk to myself. Many of these voices had originally come from outside, but I was the one that had turned these external voices into my own internal voices. How could I expect a good outcome if I'm always thinking and waiting for the opposite to occur while telling myself that I'm preparing myself for the worst outcome and then being disappointed after that outcome had become true? And so the cycle would continue. It has taken months of intense reflection and work to break many of these bad habits, and the process is still and will always be ongoing. But since I've been able to let go of so many of my past programs, I've been astounded by how much power I can have simply by letting go of wanting, and moving into a state of knowing. Knowing that it'll all work out. Knowing that I'm exactly where I need to be. Knowing that every challenge I face will bring me closer to who I am meant to become. Looking back, everything has always happened in the perfect order. Every challenge I faced has made me stronger. Why should the same not be the case into the future? It may not make sense at the time, and the future is impossible to predict. But I know that every time I look back, everything that came before will make sense. Stop doubting yourself and go forward with the trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should be. So I think I'm finally moving to a space of starting to feel a bit more positive again, positive with exactly where I am in my life. There are a lot of things that have happened recently, but then also quite far into the past that I kept dwelling on, and I was trying to figure out how I'm going to be able to break this cycle. One thing that I've also come to learn is things will always come in time. Time is the greatest healer. But we can also not rely on time alone without putting in our own efforts if we first of all want that time to come quicker. But then also to make sure that in the time that we are allowing things to unfold, that when a similar situation comes, we need to be prepared for that. Otherwise, we will keep continuing the same cycle, which I've done for my whole life. And like I've said there, it's time to break that cycle. It's time to move into a space of knowing that everything will work out, that my life will become exactly what it needs to be. But that does not take responsibility away from me being the one that will be responsible for bringing that into reality. And again, I always get to this point where I'm like, oh, it seems so easy now. Why was it not that easy in the past? And that's also the same cycle that if I continue with that thought pattern, it will most likely lead to me regressing back to where I was and then starting to repeat the negative cycles again. Where now I want to try and commit myself as much as possible to being the one in charge of my future. And that brings up the saying again, control your mind, control your future. And obviously, if we try just control our future, that's going to lead to its own maybe resentments, but then probably a lot of disappointments because things almost never go according to expectations. And that brings up another saying, which is expectations are the root of all disappointment. And that's something I know all too well. Whenever I get into a new situation, like even here, I start to get some expectations. And those expectations are basically just an attachment to the result that I've planned in my head. And one of the things I've realized is one of the roots of my suffering is just my attachment to pretty much anything. Attachment to results, attachment to even to my own fixed way of being in that current moment, where one of my biggest goals now is to learn non-attachment. And I've already proven to myself that I can do that in really small increments. And that's also one of the things that I've realized is what I said with my reading and reflection yesterday is, fuck, I had a brain fart again. I'm not even good, but let me try and move on. So I was talking about, just trying to become less attached to outcomes. I've also realized that being attached to outcomes is what's constantly led to my disappointment so many times and times again. And as with anything, this is a process. It will take a long time for me to be at a point where I am resilient enough through my non-attachment not to let my life fall apart when something out of my control happens. And even then, that's what I've realized with attachment is when we attach to an outcome, we obviously want the best outcome, but the fact that we are becoming attached to that outcome, it actually means that we actually have negative thought, a lot of negativity, and we want that expectation, but in the meantime, what happens to me is I'm telling myself that it's probably going to fall apart. So I'm trying to prepare myself for the worst while having an expectation of the best. And then by having those negative thoughts and worry about the outcome not going according to the plan in my head, that can only be manifesting that negative outcome to occur. And then no wonder it does occur. And I've realized again that the root to all of that is my attachment. So like I've just noticed how everything can either be, in my life I've noticed anyway, anything can either be a negative cycle or a positive cycle. Negative cycles reinforce themselves and create more negativity. Anyway. And then positive cycles also reinforce themselves. Like for for me with my routines at the moment is those are an example for me of how the positive cycles reinforce themselves. So with meditating, I'm meditating every day. I'm following a good routine in the morning. Just by accomplishing the routine each day, I feel good about myself. And that allows me to move into the rest of the day, not allowing my old patterns to control how I act on that specific day. Then generally that day ends up going a bit better than expected. Then I feel good in the evening. And then it repeats itself every day and grows and grows and grows. And then that's how I will be able to not only realize my new dreams or my dreams that I've come to now that have been dreams that I've suppressed for so long while trying to chase real world accomplishments that I've felt driven towards by a place not inside of me, driven by what I've been seeing on social media, driven by how things have been looked at throughout my childhood in my environment that I grew up in. And again, everything now is about let's make money, let's do this. So I got pulled into that same way of thinking that when I am doing things like meditation, spending a lot more time just reflecting on myself, realize that that is not truly me. That is not what I want for myself. That is not what I believe deep down life should be about. Obviously, we need money to live, but I've realized that money is just that, a means to live, and we all need to live. So it's essential to make money, but at what point, at what threshold does that having a higher income create more financial responsibilities that creates more work that allow you are able to enjoy your money, don't get me wrong, but why is it a requirement to do this grand, something so grand to feel good about oneself? And what I've also come to realize is, again, everything's in a way driven by our past traumas. And like, even now that I'm digging into this, I used to be so resistant to a lot of these things that I'm talking about now. I follow my worldview had become informed by the environment that I grew up in. And the environment that I grew up in does not acknowledge how traumas have shaped every facet of our lives. So, yeah, it's like I'm finally starting to feel like I'm having fun again in life. And with that comes happiness. The happiness is still coming and going. Like right now, I'm feeling great. Today, I just felt, it felt like a weight was lifted off, but I can't even put a name on what that weight was. It just, again, some days may be good, some days may be shit. You don't know how you're going to feel. And like I've also said in some of my previous reflections, there can only be highs with the lows. So it's, even if everything's going perfectly, there will be a low, but that low is what's going to help you experience the next high. So yeah, I'm super excited with where things are going at the moment. I'm feeling a lot better myself, and I know that I'm going to do all of the hard things that I need to do, that I'd previously been very reluctant to do, to help me become the person that I feel like I am meant to become. And maybe that's what, in the last few days when I talked about reinvention, maybe it's not that we are in a constant state of reinvention, but we are in a constant state of becoming. Because if we've become who we need to be, is that not, in essence, the end of a life being worth living? Or I think, again, once you are on your deathbed, that would only be the day who you have become, who you've meant to be in your human form, before you pass on to whatever's in store next. Who knows what that may be. And I've also realized through this process, I'm feeling so much better about myself now. I kept saying I have been a failure, I have not done what I'm meant to do. And that at the same time almost makes you scared of death and all those sort of things. Where now I'm feeling so good about myself, I've now come to the point of that my internal state is the only accomplishment I actually really care about. And now that I'm actively working every day to improve my internal state, I've really accomplished more than I need to accomplish to actually be happy with my life up until this point. And so too does the fear of death disintegrate. So thanks for watching. I'm having so much fun with this. I'll be back here tomorrow.